Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly session of Spark. The idea is that each week I want to come to you live. Each week I want us to be able to connect, and each week I'm hoping we can sit down and talk about different tactics that can help you on your road to success. For many of us that are vegan business owners, entrepreneurs, or planning to be vegan business owners or entrepreneurs, there's steps that we need to take to prepare ourselves, as well as there's inspiration that you may need as you stumble, walk through, and eventually succeed in your marketing efforts, succeed in servicing your clients, and succeed in ultimately achieving your vision. And what I want to do this week and nearly every week is give you a nugget or an idea that you can leverage, something that you can take and implement in your business, something that you can use to help you with growth. And our topic for today, our topic that I really want us to spend a good amount of time kind of discussing, thinking about, and maybe challenging some of you to consider is the idea of leveraging your best. Now, the reason I bring this up, the reason I use that term of leveraging your best is for many of us, when we're running our businesses, when we're marketing, we're always trying to come up with something new, with the best, the greatest, the thing that we think can truly be kind of amazing in our business. And what I want you to do, or I want you to think about a little bit differently in your business, is the idea that everything you create in your business doesn't have to be brand new. Everything that you come up with does not have to be an idea that's never been seen or talked about before. Instead, what I want you to do is start to leverage what you've done. I want you to leverage the best content that you've written already on your blog. I want you to leverage the best live session that you've done before. I want you to leverage one of those social media posts that worked out really well and people enjoyed. Because when you start to think about planning, especially as we're in this beginning part of the year, as we're preparing for our goals and really our accomplishments for 2021 and beyond, I want you to start from a place of success when you're planning. When you're thinking about what I'm going to do this year, how am I going to get growth? How am I going to get better at social media or my email marketing or any of those kind of questions that you might be asking yourself? What I want you to do is think about what have you done before that has been successful before you jump into planning. All right. That's what I want you to think about today. This is my big takeaway I want you to have as we're moving forward. Now, as always with these sessions, when you're watching this, either live or recorded, I love for them to be interactive. So feel free to jump into the comments and just let me know, hey, Stephanie, I'm here. Or if you have a question about leveraging or anything we talk about today, definitely use the comments because it's a great way for me to respond and make sure you have clarity so you can use this strategy moving forward. All right. So step number one, when you're talking about leveraging your best, when I talk about that, what that means is you want to spend some time reviewing what you've done before. This means digging into some of the metrics. This means digging into some of the numbers, but it's important to do that. Because if you know that these are my top 5 blog posts that I've done in 2020, these are the ones that resonated really well, that people really liked, people responded to, then what we can do is spin those off into additional content. So if you see a blog post does well, that may be a topic for a future webinar. That may be a topic for a future email. Now, when I say it's a topic for a future, I don't mean one-to-one. I don't mean we're just going to take the blog post, grab an excerpt from it, put it in an email, and hey, we're done. I mean leverage it, not just repeat it, but leverage it. And what that means is, based on maybe some of the comments that people had about that blog post, maybe do a follow-up webinar that shows people how to do it. So let me use an example. And I'll use a foodie example as an example. I've been getting into gardening lately. Now, I'm not really having a green thumb. I'm a person that just loves to dabble in it and have a little bit of fun. So I have a little miniature lemon tree. We've been doing some pineapples because I live here in Florida. And we have a herb garden because it's a great way for me to put in some fresh things. If I did a blog post that talked about starting your own home garden, the importance of creating your home garden, and it did well, then what I would do is go into my garden and create video content showing each of the individual things that I put in my garden, how I picked those items. I would even show updates of those videos and show people how things are growing and how things are flourishing. Now, depending on where you are here in the country, really, or in the world, that garden may be at different stages, especially since we're in the winter time frame. But the idea is helping people take something that went well, like a blog post about creating your own garden, and creating additional content that supports that topic. That's how you leverage your best. Now, I use an example for a garden because many of us in the vegan community tend to be foodies, but I'll also use an example for us in our business and what has worked well for us. So we've done a lot of different articles, we've done a lot of live sessions, and when I look back on some of my data, some of my most popular videos were inspirational videos. Some of my most popular videos were videos where I shared my journey, I shared what worked, and I shared for people how I did it. So how I made that happen. So one thing that we're starting to do now is we're starting to create additional content that's the how-to video. So if I show someone, or I talked about, especially from one of my inspirational videos, I talked about the importance of kind of coming out of your shell. I talked about the importance of spending time talking with people, whether you do live sessions, you do blog posts, whether you do a podcast, but giving people the opportunity to know who you are, what you do, and what you offer. Kind of being a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time being seen. I talked about how important that was. And that video I did last year did really, really well. So now what I'm doing and what we're creating content for this year is I'm going to create how-to videos to show people how I came out of my shell, how I spent more time on live videos, how I come up with my process for live videos, how I even do the tech behind the scenes for these live videos. And now what I'm doing is I'm literally creating content from the best content I promoted or created in the prior year. And therefore, I know where to go deep because I can look at content that worked well before, and I can have content ideas for 2021 based on some of the results and things that worked for me in 2020. Now, some of you may be like, Stephanie, I'm just getting started in my business. Or maybe you didn't have a huge successful article or post or something in 2020, and you're trying to figure out, what do I do now? The other option is to test. The other option is to try different things. So take one of your social media platforms. Maybe you're using Instagram and you love Instagram. So you've been posting, you've started doing stories. Maybe you've done some live sessions. Spend some time each week looking at your results in Instagram and seeing what works. So if you see a certain topic worked well as a story in Instagram, then leverage that and maybe use that as content for a future webinar. Use that as content for a future blog post. Use that as content for a future live session. And the idea now is, instead of all of your ideas having to come from the sky and be brand new, is that your ideas build on top of each other. You try new things, and you try them based on a post that got a lot of comments or a post that got a lot of likes. Those become the source of those next steps. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you've ever done this before and used your prior success to help you move forward. And like I said, it doesn't have to be what you did last year. It doesn't have to be so far back. It can literally be anything that I post on social media in week 1. Whatever does well, then I take that post and leverage it and expand upon it in another platform and in another format. So that way I know my community is interested in this, and my response to their engagement, my response to their interest is me creating an additional piece of content to support that. So therefore, you always do some new content each week, and then each week you do content that reinforces or goes deeper into content that was successful in the prior week. That's a strategy, not only for your social media, but for your marketing at large. And that's what I want you to do this year. I want you to start to build marketing strategies that are not just about the new, not just about things that are news related or trendy, but are based on what your community is already showing that they're interested in, and then you give them more. Because now what you're doing is you're creating a little bit of a social dance with the people in your community. You're creating an opportunity where they show what they're interested in, and then you give them a little bit more of what they like. All right. Item number 1 on the list. That's how we get that first idea as far as leverage. All right. The next thing I want you to think about when I talk about leveraging your best, when I talk about kind of taking things to that next level, is build a campaign around that approach. One thing I like to do is when we do a lot of marketing, I like to see how different content does in different platforms. So, what I see happen in our LinkedIn platform versus maybe our Instagram platform versus email, maybe versus our lives. What we'll do is we'll look at that content and I'll notice that there's often a similar theme. There's things that work well in certain types of formats. So, what works well in a live format might be a little bit different than what works well in a written format in an email. So, what I like to do is I like to test that out. I like to see, well, if I had a topic that worked really well in email, can I move that into my live stream approach? Can I use that approach? Now, when I say that approach, I don't want to be general. I want to give you something specific. And what I mean by that is one thing that we've been testing in email is a more casual approach to talking to our audience. Because there's a way of doing email where you have images, you have content and buttons, and people can click on. But what I like to do is use email as a format to talk. Because what I find is people have been enjoying our live videos. They've enjoyed when I just kind of talk to them and tell them what's on my mind, what I'm thinking, what my inspiration is for the week. And what we've started to do is say, what if I do one of those emails a month that's just me talking to people, sharing what I've learned, sharing what some of my experiences have been, what have been some of my aha moments. And what I'm doing now is I'm leveraging the best of format in my live in my email marketing. That doesn't mean I stop all my other email marketing approaches, all my other email marketing kind of formats. But what I'm doing is I'm starting to mix approaches in different platforms. So therefore that platform doesn't stay stale. It doesn't always look the same way it's looked before. So therefore my style of talk that I would do in a live video or in a podcast, I'm incorporating into my email. And it can work the other way as well. The other thing we've started to do is play around with posts that have done really well in social media and replicate those posts in email. And what I mean by that is bringing in some of that videos or that content. Let's say, for example, we did a post, I think it was last year, maybe it was the year before. We did a post on speaking. We talked about the value of speaking. We talked about the value of getting out in front of your audience, meeting people. And we talked about how important is it for something for you to do. That posted really well in social media. People talked about sometimes their fears about speaking. People talked about their concerns with speaking. People talked about, should I do it? Should I wait? Should I do it now? Or should I do it later? And it was a great post as far as dialogue. And what we found is because it created so much great dialogue in social media, that maybe we should bring a similar topic to our email and have people start having dialogue, or even better, add to that dialogue online. So instead of us just trying to come up with something brand new, what I did is I wrote an email and talked about one of my recent speaking experiences, what it was like, how I enjoyed it, what kind of growth it gave me, how, I prepared for it, and so forth. Then towards the end of that email, we included the photo that was in social media and put that in there. We put the caption that was in there for social media. And then we added some text that said, continue the conversation about speaking and about securing speaking engagements and kind of how you've used it in your business. Click this button to go over to our social media. And at that time, I think we sent people over to Instagram and over to LinkedIn. And then what people could do is after reading that email, they could click on a post, go to our social media, and participate in the conversation that had already gotten started on social media and be a part of that community. And that's how we were leveraging our best once again. We were taking something that worked well in social media, adapting it to email so it still had content and information. Like I said, I used what I learned from live to make that email a little bit more personal. And then we included the image and the button to send them over social media so they can continue the conversation with others. That's what I want you to start thinking about doing this year, is getting your email to work together. Getting your, not email, getting your marketing channels to work together. So therefore, one thing that works in one format, you incorporate it in the other format, as well as create cross-promotional opportunities between your channels. And that means you don't have to come up with everything brand new anymore. What you can do is get these channels to support each other. Get these channels to leverage what's working and allow these channels to kind of mingle with each other as you move forward. All right. What do you guys think of that idea? Let me know in the comments. Hey, it looks like a couple people showed up. Hey, Debbie, it's always so great to see you during our live sessions, as well as someone had typed in, it doesn't say the individual, but it said brilliant. Very, very, very glad that you liked that suggestion. So that's what I want you to do. That's your action item if you're looking for something to act on this week, is think about how you're going to leverage. How are you going to leverage your best? Not just this week, but how are you going to do that in 2021? What are some of the best content that you've created in the past? What are some of the things that are working well right now? And should you revisit it? And whether you revisit it in a different format, whether it goes into a podcast, whether it goes into video format, whether it becomes written, what I want you to do is think about this idea that when you do something great, when you produce something that people love, when you produce something that's really interesting, that I want you to do is I want you to find a way to leverage it. I want you to find a way to do more from it. Oh, we had a question come in or a comment come in. Hi, Sam. Thanks so much for putting your post there. It says, I've started doing this, but I need to get more organized rather than it as a ad hoc. Love that you said that. I so appreciate you saying that, because not only this is like the perfect time of the year to get organized, and I say that because I do the same thing. Now, I love structure and process and all of that, but I love this time of year because it's a great time of year to say, how will you put structure around these things so that they can happen? Because I can say to you, leverage your best. I can give you these ideas, but for them to become reality, they need a process behind them. And what that means is, if you're doing your social media on a weekly basis, you want to set aside time, maybe every Friday, 30 minutes, maybe it's every Monday for 30 minutes, to look at your social media, see what has done well, so you know what to leverage. Same thing goes for your other channels. Maybe once a week, that 30-minute time is really for you to do a little bit of analytical digging. And what you do is every Monday, 30 minutes, you go look at your stats, see what did well on social media, what did well in your last email, which one had the most clicks or links that were actually clicked on in your email. Maybe you're going to look at, if you did a live session, see how that live session did and how it stacked up with other live sessions. If you have a podcast, look at what the downloads were for that podcast or for your podcast for that prior week and see what did well, and then leverage that in the next week in an additional channel. But you need to put a process in place for that to happen. And I highly recommend doing something even as simple as just setting aside time. And when I say set aside time, a lot of times I just put it on my calendar. I put a little 15-minute, 30-minute thing that I do to make sure I have the habit of knowing what I want to do next. Now, I do a lot of social media planning a month in advance. And I love being able to do that. But it's good to put a plan in place for a month, but then every week make any changes. Now, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, Sam, I see your question there or your comment about you'd love to start a podcast, but you need to be brave. I want to give you some inspiration if I can. I want to give it to you over the airwaves here, over the video, over social media here, and hopefully it's landing to you in LinkedIn. Because one thing I want to say is, yes, doing these new things can be scary. Doing these new kind of techniques, approach, or even jumping into something new like a podcast can be nerve-wracking. Because there's so many unknowns, something you haven't done before. So there's some tech behind it. There's figuring out what you want to say and how you want to say it. But I want to give you some courage and help you with that, being brave piece for two reasons. Number one, a lot of times it can be hard when we're looking at these projects and we're thinking about ourselves. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to get nervous at times. Maybe even sometimes you're going to have a little bit of doubt. But what I always want you to do, and this is what I do when I need to be brave, when I need to do something that's a little bit harder for me, I remember the impact that I'm going to be making. I remember the people that I can help. So that even if I don't feel as comfortable being on camera, or like you said, Sam, hearing your own voice, if it's about, all the attention on you or whatever thing is that can hold you back, because all of us have those things that can hold us back, is that when I refocus my energy on the people I can help, the people I can impact, the people that I can help make maybe that transformation. And if it was my podcast, or Sam, in your case, your podcast that could make that difference, it helps me remember that and focus my energy there. And therefore, by focusing my energy on who and how I can help them, that becomes my motivation. That helps me get through the bumps. That helps me get through sometimes my fears and my doubts. And it helps me understand my why. It helps me understand my purpose, which can ground me. And I wonder if that would help you, Sam. Now, I'm making an assumption because we haven't hung out before, but I'm hoping maybe that can help you and may even help others out there that are starting to think about doing things differently, doing things like podcasts, doing things like live video, doing things that you've never done before. Remember, this is an opportunity to help the people that you ultimately have the skills and the ability to help. So don't let the tools hold you back. Don't let the things that make us all a little bit nervous and can make these things hard at times, because remember the people that you're going to help and how appreciative they will be that we overcame our doubts, we overcame our fears, and we overcame those things to show up and be there for them. All right. Oh, thanks, Sam. Appreciate you putting that message up there. It's so great to hear that. And I hope that helps all of us, or anyone out there who's listening. And I say that, Sam, to you, not to put you on the spot, but to remind all of us that we all get doubts. We all get nervous at times. I did a live presentation last year, and for some reason, before I got started, I got nervous. I almost started sweating, and I was like, oh no, I'm on camera. They can see that I'm sweating. And what I did is I said the exact same thing I said to you, is I said, Stephanie, they don't care if you're sweating. They just want to know, can you help them start their business? And I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. I got the skills for that. And when I refocused my energy, I was able to move through, and that became really one of my probably best presentations that I did last year. So I say that not just to put anyone on the spot, but I say that because I use that as well to help me move forward. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's live session. With that, I want to make sure that all of you remember that this is the time to think about this strategy of leveraging your best. This is a great time to think about how you're going to incorporate this and put a process in place. And as always, I'd love to know what you're thinking you would do after listening to this, whether you're listening to this as a podcast or watching this live or as a replay. Let me know how you plan to leverage your best. How do you plan to incorporate this in your process moving forward, and how it can help you drive not only a dynamic marketing approach, but a marketing approach that puts your customers at the center of it. So, as always, thanks for being here. We love the thumbs up. We love comments. We love when you subscribe so you never miss one of these sessions. So please don't forget to hit those buttons before you leave us today. And as always, thanks for joining. Can't wait to see you next week. And I can't wait to hear how you're all going to be leveraging your best in 2021. Take care. Bye, everyone.